Hello, friends. Hey, I hope you're doing well. If you haven't gotten to the fair, you better hurry. You don't want to miss out on those Fletcher's corny dogs. I'm sure there's one or two there. They're waiting for you to be purchased this week. Hey, in the studios today, we have Lawrence. Hey, Lawrence, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing real good.
I'm so glad to have you today. Tell us about your family.
Well, I have obviously a wife and 3 daughters. I met my wife. I just got saved when I was 16 years old.
Wow.
And I had always looked at her, even before I got saved, I'd seen her singing in the kids' choir, and I always picked her out thinking, man, there's the ultimate church girl, you know?
Oh, there you go.
And then years later, I got saved and started going to church, and we become involved, and I thought she was the prettiest girl in church.
There you go.
And all the other boys thought the same
thing, huh?
I never did quite figure out why she picked me, but she picked me, and we wound up getting married.
She saw the heart, brother.
That's right.
Now, where do you guys live?
We live in Arlington.
Okay, you still live in Arlington.
Yes.
So you've been in Arlington like forever, right?
We moved to Arlington in 1979. I actually got saved in Oklahoma City.
Okay.
And I had built a small business there, and I moved up here, started a business here in 1979.
1979. I was trying to remember what year we met. We met through a mutual friend, Richard Condola.
Yes.
Richard's been a good friend for a lot of years.
He was the first children's pastor that I trained under. And a funny story, I had volunteered to help with the Royal Rangers there at the church. And I had 8 kids, and they wore me out. They just wore me out. And one Sunday morning, I got up and thought, I'm going to go see how Richard runs the children's ministry. And I walked in there. He had 100 kids, and you could hear a pin drop. I was just so amazed. And that's where I first learned and experienced the fact that the Holy Spirit could move in a children's ministry.
Yeah. Now, you guys were at, originally it was called Arlington Christian Center, is that right?
Arlington Christian Center.
Changed the name to Dominion Church?
The Dominion Church, yes.
So those are the early days in Arlington. What years would that have been?
That would be somewhere around 95, I believe.
Mid-90s, okay.
Yep.
So what do you remember about ministering to kids other than the wearing you out?
Well, you know, I trained under 3 different children's ministers there. And then in 2000, I became the children's pastor there. And I just remember that, you know, we had a great team. We had a lot of fun. And we always talked about how that would become, that we was always going to look back at these times as the greatest time in our life, and we do. Mm-hmm. That was the greatest time of my life, ministering to kids. And I still do it in a smaller way, but, you know, we had, you know, between 75 and 100 kids, and we just had a great time.
Arlington's changed.
Arlington has grown a lot.
Yeah. I grew up in Arlington. My dad needed a job, and they were building a plant. General Motors was building a plant in 1954.
Oh, wow.
And so when my family moved to Arlington, there was 13,000 people that lived in Arlington.
Wow. There's, pushing 400 now?
I'm sure. You know, the strange thing about Arlington, it's always been a bedroom community, and in some ways, it still is.
Yeah.
It definitely has an infrastructure like a very small town. You can tell Mayor Vandergrift did a phenomenal job of, he was the one that brought General Motors. He brought Arlington. At that time, it was Arlington State College, which turned into UTA.
Yep.
He was the one that brought Six Flags over Texas.
Yep. Texas Rangers.
And then the Texas Rangers. So there were, but along with that, man, the town, particularly I guess maybe in the 70s, is just exploded, you know. And so today, as you mentioned, 400,000 people.
Yep.
So in the time you've been there, what are the changes you've seen in the city?
Well, when I first moved to town, I discovered I-20 about a month after I moved to town, and I-20 was barren. There was nothing on it. There was nothing south of it but farmland and the airport. That was it.
Right.
And now I live, several miles south of the airport, and it's just packed with houses. So the growth has just been phenomenal over the years.
And we talked about us meeting through a mutual friend, Richard Condor. How did you and Richard meet?
Well, as I say, he was a children's pastor there. And then he told me one day, he said, I want you to go with me to a dinner. Dress up a little bit, let's go to dinner. I'm like, what's that all about? He said, you'll find out. And so we went over to the Lighthouse Church, and there was a dinner there, and I walked in, and I walk into the bathroom. The funniest thing, there's a guy walking out as I was walking in. He had long stringy hair, had blue jeans on, and the thing hit my mind, this guy doesn't seem to fit in here. But and you're probably going to know who I'm talking about, after we ate dinner, he's the man that got up and spoke. And when he got done speaking, there probably wasn't a dry eye in the place.
Bill Wilson.
And they was there. I believe they were kicking off your ministry.
It was. Yeah, that's right.
I was at that dinner.
Yep. I had no idea you were there.
Yep, I was there that night.
Yeah. Richard, we'll talk about Bill, but Richard, the greatest move that I personally have seen with children was with Richard.
Yep, same here.
He came. We did a 4-night, which is unheard of now, but 4-night crusade. Kids, nothing but kids. And the last night, I've never witnessed such a strong presence of the Lord, and which is that's really the DNA of Richard and Dottie Condor.
Yes.
They strong believer, and you can get the presence of God there. Lives are going to be changed. It really doesn't even matter what else happens. If you get the presence of God there, then lives will be. And he knows how to capture the attention of children, whether it's through games or music. Their music, they were doing cutting edge music when nobody even heard of cutting edge music.
Yep.
But he did that crusade for us, and the presence was so strong that at that time the Lighthouse had a Christian school, and chapel was on Thursday. The presence from Wednesday night was as strong Thursday as it was Wednesday, because all I did was I got up from the kids. I said, for those of you that were not in the crusade, I said, the same presence of God that was here last night is here tonight. If you want it, come. Kids came up, slain in the Spirit. And I don't know, some people are going, I'm telling you, it was unbelievable.
Yep.
And Richard and I have been lifelong friends ever since. It's even what he's doing now in Nacogdoches.
Yes.
Unheard of, man. I mean, who would think in Nacogdoches, Texas,
town.
Yeah,
yep,
that you're going to have hundreds of kids show up on a Sunday night.
Sunday night, yes.
You can't get people to come to church on Sunday night, brother.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. But God,
Yep.
So I'm deeply indebted to Richard. I learned so many things. Another thing that attracted me to Richard was when they lived there in Dallas. He had an old metal building out back, and he only used that building as his prayer room. And I went, I don't think I've ever met anybody that has a designated room for prayer. Taught me something about him, immediately. And the result of that is, God he has so blessed Richard over the years. He has an incredible, even to this day, he has an incredible anointing on his life. If the rest of us go, man, someday I'm going to be like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's why I learned that children's ministry was not a babysitting thing. That's where I learned that children's ministry is that you can actually minister to kids, and kids can experience the presence and the touch of God in their life.
Absolutely.
And I found that out through his ministry, and that just stuck with me. He just had such an anointing on his ministry.
We I'm trying to figure out right now what's happening in the church world. I mean, the gap. There's a gap between like children and youth, and then there's another gap from youth to like young adults, and then young adults to churches. So at one time, I think Sunday school played a strong influence on moving people through different ages. Well, there's Sunday schools.
It's non-existent.
No, it's not. So you have to figure out, okay, so how do we bridge these gaps so that we don't, because every time there's a gap, we're losing people, right? And so I think that one of the things that Richard has done and still does, when his team shows up on whenever it is, and we'll just say Sunday night because that's the night they're ministering now, when they show up, they expect God to show up. Well, when you expect that, He will. Well, it's not long until your kids.
Yep.
They're expecting God to show up too. So I love Richard and Dottie. They are incredible people. If their kids are outstanding too. And
yeah, when I first met him, his kids were real little.
Oh yeah.
Now they're helping run the ministry there.
Oh, that and I see his oldest daughter pastors in, I think, Conroe. Does that sound right?
I'm not. I don't know that. I haven't talked to him. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years.
Oh yeah. Well, Bill Wilson. I met Bill in the 80s. I was still going to church in Arlington. He spoke at our church, and I said, "Who is this guy, man?
Yeah.
And what planet does he live on?" I've never even heard of the things he's talking about. And so when we first started attending the Lighthouse, same thing. The second time I heard him, I went, I don't understand this guy any better now than I did the first time. So the third time he spoke at the Lighthouse, I just told the Lord, I said, okay, I've heard this guy 3 times. I don't understand where he lives. I don't understand the problems. I don't even understand why he put himself in harm's way like this. I said, I don't get it. And the Lord spoke to me and he says, if you're going to make a difference, you're going to have the same commitment level that Bill Wilson has.
Yeah. And he demands a very high commitment level. You know, when we was in the children's ministry there in Arlington, we decided to go out and to some of the apartments and invite kids to come in. And I had seen some of his videos of how to do it right. Unfortunately, we didn't have the time. You guys sort of immersed yourself in it where we sort of stuck our toes in it. and we were successful to a point. We was able to bring in some kids, and we had some kids that long term we bust into our church, and we still have a relationship to this day. But we never done it the way that Bill done it, the way that you do it, the way that it really needs to be done to have a very successful inner city ministry. We just wasn't able to.
Yeah.
But you guys have jumped right in there, right into the middle of it, and immersed yourself in it, and that's what I admire about both Bill Wilson and you, is that you guys have really got into it and done it the right way.
Thank you. Well, that's the Lord, brother. I mean, once again, I grew up at Arlington, so it's not like that I understood the culture. That was the one of the hard things on the front end was learning the culture. It was so different than what I grew up in. Not right, not wrong, just different, you know. But I did make that Sunday. I said, Lord, I want my life to count. And at that time, I had no intention of working in the inner city. That wasn't even on the radar.
Yeah.
I just wanted my life to count, you know.
Yeah.
I spent most of my life doing what I wanted to do.
You know, I was the same way. I started a business. I learned how to fly. I went hunting a lot. And then in the mid-40s is when God sort of got a hold of me and said, you know, started steering me in another direction and towards it. You know, I'm 47 years old, a children's pastor, a male, you know, at that, you know, and that's nearly unheard of, but yet that's what happened. But it was only God, and it just goes to show how good God is. You know, if you'll turn yourself over to God and just say, God, I just want to be used by you, you know, He'll take you places you never dreamed you would go.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, like yourself, I've had the opportunity to rub shoulders with people that in the natural you're going, how did I even get in this room, let alone have the opportunity to have these people influence my life. And, as a result, when we started the bus ministry, I'm still, it's not like I had totally committed, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So I started asking those questions. Up until then, I just going, okay, Lord, what do you want us to do? And so when he said the bus ministry, originally on the bus ministry, what people don't know is that when we originally started the bus ministry, which is when Bill came, my only commitment was I was going to do the buses. Mm-hmm. I knew about mechanics. Now, I can't work on anything now, but back when they had carburetors, there's nothing electronic, then had a pretty good understanding of vehicles. And so that was my deal, was buying the buses, repairing them, keeping them up. That's what I agreed to do. And when when Bill came, that was when the Lord spoke to my heart. He said, because if you remember that night, but Bill said, somebody's got to lead this thing. Somebody's got to lead it. And when he said that, the Lord said, you're the guy. And I went, I don't think so. He said, no, this is what I prepared you for. And when the Lord said that, I went, really? Me? I felt so unqualified. And like you later in life, it was, when we started the bus ministry, I was 35. That's.
But who is qualified? We're all unqualified. When God calls you to something, He's the one that qualifies you. He's the one that put that anointing upon you.
But I didn't know that. I didn't know that at that time. You know what I'm saying? I get that now. That's why I'm a firm believer in God doesn't call the qualified; He qualifies the call.
That's exactly
right.
And
once you wrap your brain around that, it changes your thinking. And the result is that Bill's still alive. I don't know if you know that. But he's still alive. He's doing well. The ministry is they're doing a lot. They're actually doing much more overseas than what they're doing here in New York. And they do have a hard push right now trying to expand across the United States. Got an incredible team working with him, and I'm obviously I'm humbled to call him a friend. Not just a mentor, but a friend.
Well, man, I'll tell you what, he has the most incredible testimony of anybody I think I've ever heard in my life. Just absolutely, just something else.
Yeah. And he's had plenty of reasons to quit.
Oh, he's been shot in the face.
Yeah.
Good reason.
Yeah. Beat up a couple of times. And yet, because his commitment level, he stayed with it. You now are a part of Crossroads of Life Church in Duncanville.
Yes.
And you made a video not too long ago, and you made a statement in there. You said the greatest thing you've ever done in your life is minister to kids.
Yes.
What made you make that statement?
Well, at the time they asked me the question, what would I say to the younger people about serving in a church? And the first thing that come to my mind was, when you get to my age and you look back in your life and you think, did I actually make an impact? Did I actually do something in my life? And I look back at all the fun things I did. I learned how to fly an airplane. I had an airplane for a while. I loved to play ball, and I got to play on a tournament team, and we won a state championship. I got to do a lot of things that I wanted to do as a man. But then when I look back at my life, what really made a difference in my life, and the only thing that I can point to was ministering to kids and imparting into them spiritual things in their life. And it was just the greatest time of my life, no doubt about it.
Not only has Arlington changed, our society's changed.
Oh.
And I've heard people say, you can't teach this next generation for whatever reason. You can say, well, it's a breakdown of the home, lack of respect for authority, short attention span, screen time, so forth and so on. What would you say to them?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Yeah, there's a breakdown in the home. There's a lot of ungodliness in the schools.
Yeah.
In the political arena, there's just so much hate and so much bitterness in the political arena. In every aspect of life, it's just ungodliness, and that's why I believe it's so important to minister to kids and try to get some kind of foundation in their life so that when they grow up, they don't go off on these tangents. There's kids out. Let's take, for instance, this Charlie Kirk shooter. You know, he grew up in a good home, but we don't know his foundation. But we do know that he got so influenced by outside forces that he takes up a gun and goes shoots a man because he doesn't agree with him. And what causes that? And only thing I can point out is demonic influences. And we have to protect our kids. We have to get them. We have to get them into church. We have to get them in a spiritual sense to where they're protected from these outside demonic influences. And that's the biggest thing I would think is just demonic influences really causing us a lot of hurt in our society.
Each week we try to give a nugget to people, something they can hang their hat on. And I knew we were going to talk about this today. And the verses that came to my mind, Psalms chapter 78, verse 4, it says, "We will not hide these truths from our children. We'll tell them the next generation." That's what you're talking about the glorious deeds of the Lord, about his power and his mighty works. For he issued his laws to Jacob. He gave his instruction to Israel. He commanded our ancestors to teach them to our children, so the next generation, there it is, so the next generation might know them, even children not yet born. And in turn, they'll teach their own generation. So, my admonition to people when they say you can't teach this next generation, I just say you got to be a little more creative than what you could in the past. It's like when we first started, we were okay. This will take you back. We're using flannel boards, brother. Chris, you don't even know what a flannel board is, right? No. Yeah. There's all kinds of tools out there. Get involved, volunteer, invest in the next generation. And I don't say that as one that's not involved. I'm giving my life to the next generation. And I know a lot of people, they're making a lot of assumptions, and I'm assuming, and I mentioned this in our podcast last week, I'm assuming people are praying. Just an assumption I make. I'm assuming they're opening God's Word. But once you have those two things down, my admonition is get involved. Absolutely. Get involved in the local church. Volunteer to reach the next generation. And the results, I believe, they'll surprise you.
Well, one of the things that happened when we was in the children's ministry, and of course I have 3 daughters, and I was struggling with one of my daughters at the time, and one of the church members come up to me and said, "I got a word from the Lord for you." And at the time I really needed it. I was very discouraged and struggling. And this lady told me, she said, "God told me to tell you that as you minister, as you work in the children's ministry, as you sow into the children's ministry, into these kids' life, God's going to take care of your kids." And I was praying about it the other day, and I believe it's the same way with your ministry, that if people, if you have a problem with your children, if you want God to help with your kids, sow into, either volunteer yourself or sow into a ministry that is working with kids. And God's a God that does not owe anybody anything. He's going to repay everything you do, and it's not necessarily monetary. A lot of times God pays us back in ways that we never dreamed He's going to pay us back. And I just believe that when you sow into a ministry that is working with kids, that God's going to help you with your kids. I'm a firm believer of that.
Yeah, I agree totally. Lawrence, it's been so good to see you today, brother. So appreciate you being with us here and sharing with us. Hey, if I mentioned you use that word "so," if we could kind of close on that thought, we're, our need for new facilities. The Lighthouse is providing property for us to build right next door to them. Why should people? Why should they get involved and believe for this miracle with us?
Well, It's very simple. We look at our society today and see how it's breaking down, but you're right out there in the middle of the area that's breaking down, and you're sowing into these kids' lives. And as these kids grow up, they're going to be adults. The one thing that I found out about children's ministry is these kids grow up really fast.
Yeah.
There's been a few times I've had kids come back to me to talk to me, and I look at them, good grief, I'm glad I never made you mad. You're like twice my size now, you know. And these kids grow up so fast, and when you sow into their lives, when they grow up, they're going to break that chain of destruction, and you're not going to reach every child, but you're going to reach a bunch.
Yeah.
And if you sow into this ministry, you're sowing into the future of our country.
Yeah. The future of the church. I believe that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, brother. I hope you caught this today. Lawrence is such a good brother, longtime supporter of Dallas Metro, longtime supporter of the church. And so, hey, I'm asking you today, would you go to our webpage, dallasmetro.org, and then click on All In, and you can see the pictures that Michael's drawn. The city has our plans. Now we're just waiting on them to finish the punch list on the things we have to do. And once that's all completed, then they'll give us a permit, and we'll be ready to start. Remember, we're paying cash. Well, how does that happen? Well, these are our children, and so they're counting on you to invest in them, and they're worth investing in. So I'm asking you today, would you prayerfully consider helping us for the next 12 months? Our goal is by December 2026, which will be here sooner than you think, to have the building completed and paid cash for. And that's only going to happen. People like you stand with us. So glad you tuned in today. Hope you've been blessed. We'll see you next week, friend. God bless you. Bye-bye.